Welcome to After the Letter, our short companion conversation to this week's reading of The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. In these episodes, one of us has just narrated the letter, while the other is hearing it for the first time. So what follows is a fresh conversation about what stood out, what surprised us, and what still feels relevant today. This week we're reflecting on Letter 2, where Lewis turns from distraction to disappointment and asks what happens when our expectations collide with reality. Before we start today, we've had some feedback from one of our lovely subscribers.
Have we?
And they wanted to know if they could see us having this conversation.
I think I need to think about that one.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about having my ugly mush on the telly.
Yeah. Let's see how we got on with a few of these.
So, as always, I'd love to hear your first impression on hearing this letter.
This one was a lot easier to get into straight away for me because it wasn't so abstract anymore. It was going straight into the practical stuff and the everyday situations of people going to church and what people look like. And
it told more of a story, I thought.
Yeah. I could get into it more because there were also more characters being talked about. There's still this patient, but then there's a bit of context. Something's moved on with this individual. So I feel like the journey started.
Was there a moment for you that felt especially uncomfortable? Or was there anything that stood out for you?
Last week I said about it feeling like a bureaucracy or that kind of civil service speak. And it is just making me feel more uncomfortable because when I listen to it, I see parallels. So even though this has been written by C.S. Lewis and it's maybe around spirituality and religion and things like that, I think it applies to secular situations as well, to politics and how people look at each other and treat each other and how individuals are acted upon by organisations.
It's viewed as a work of Christian theology, but I feel that it's very relevant because everybody has had those thoughts to a greater or lesser extent.
It always sounded as if you were getting much more into it.
Yeah, I found it a lot easier. This one was different from the first one because the first one I felt did tell a story, but it was quite light. It was almost introductory. Whereas this one I felt painted scenarios and it told a story and it was quite easy to get into the flow of the narration. I enjoyed doing it. I found that the humour in it was readily apparent in this particular one. It's just funny. Not doing side splitters all the time. It's a dry humour. But it's interesting that the scenarios themselves are funny. Like the idea of the grocer bustling up with two shabby little books. And the people in church, one of them's an avid bridge player and the other one's an extortioner. The idea of that was funny, I thought.
It's interesting that you say that you think it's funny. I don't see that as humorous. It's almost like it's a caricature.
Well, that's the essence of classic British humour.
Yeah, you see, this is why I wonder whether I'm a bit autistic in that way, that I just take things so literally. It's just like, okay, yeah, but how is that funny?
Well, parts of this played out for me in the way of an Ealing comedy. So it has that classic post-war British black and white sensibility, which I'm trying to reflect through the narration.
But then it goes from being funny to being tragic, because it feels like we're only on letter 2 and I'm going, oh my goodness.
That's the essence of comedy, is tragedy. Comedy works when there's tragedy.
Yeah, I don't know how painful this journey's going to be, but it's that, I've had my own experiences with first impressions and people making judgments and decisions about me before I've even opened my mouth. And then when I open my mouth, they're still caught up with the surface that they don't actually hear the thing that I say. And then when they hear the thing that I say, then it still seems to be out of chime with what they're seeing. So there's all these layers upon layers of disappointment or confusion.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that this letter and the previous letter reveals the thought processes and how the tempters are influencing the thought process to make people act this way. How much internal dialogue is telling them to say the things they say and act the way they act and do the things that they do. How many of the thoughts that are in some people's heads are actually their thoughts?
That's really interesting because, again, in terms of right now, coming across people who would say the things that their parents might say. So they'd be young, but they'd be coming out with these ideas, but they're not their own. But they've heard them and they elicit a certain response, whether they understand what that response means or not. And then we hear these terms about sleepwalking, how many people are actually conscious and mindful of what they're saying and what they're thinking and feeling and saying and doing. How much of it is reactive rather than intentional?
Yes. There is a term, NPC, non-player character.
Right. You asked me before about if there was anything that made me uncomfortable about the letter. And so I've got my own feelings about organised religion and books, arcane language. Even if there wasn't that temptation, it's this whole thing of what is the message, what are the actual principles, and they can still be delivered in a way that doesn't necessarily even require a tempter because they've been filtered, edited, channeled, whatever, by other human beings. So you're still kind of getting it's not even a copy of a copy of a copy, it's a perspective of a perspective of a perspective. Whether you believe in universal principles or relativism, it can be difficult, it can be uncomfortable to try and figure out what seems right or wrong for ourselves when it is being mediated through these organisations. It might be a good introduction, but even then I'm still a bit uncomfortable about being able to tell the difference between what feels right to myself and, that inner knowing, compared with what I'm being told is the right way to go about it. So From the context of this story, it doesn't surprise me. It's not a difficult thing to muddy the waters further.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway from this one for you then? What did you get out of this letter?
Expectations shape experience more often than we realise.
Gosh, that sounds like you read it from something. Did you write that down before?
We live in the future rather than living now, and your plans for the future, the place where you live, are shaped in the now by the emotions generated from memories of the past. So if you had an experience in the past, it created emotions which influence you now in creating something in the future. Basically, it's temporality. So one of the things about the demons is that they exist outside time. So they can see all of this happening. And that's why they can see how to shape people's expectations in order to change their experience.
Every day is fresh with no mistakes, right? That's a line that I remember from childhood from Anne of Green Gables, right? Yeah. So whatever's gone on, whatever that water is under the bridge, whatever that first impression was, however it landed, whether it was the tone of the voice or the way that they were dressed or the time of day or whatever it was, we give each other a chance and give ourselves the chance to go beyond, rather than get derailed, to just consider our options. You can go down the route of dismiss the message now and life goes one way. Or if you are very much living in the moment, if it's making you uncomfortable, if it's making me uncomfortable, how can I possibly be kind to myself but try and keep an open mind and be curious and see where the conversation takes me or where the information takes me.
In regards to other people, I was always taught to firstly treat people as I would wish to be treated myself, and secondly to take people as you find them.
Yeah.
So not prejudge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because prejudging is self-limiting as well as limiting to the other person.
Well, I enjoyed listening to it and I enjoyed talking about it. This is going to be probably one of the only things that we do consistently between now and the end of the year.
I guess so. It's a date.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm the one who suggested we do this.
Sorry.
Thank you for listening to After the Letter. If you haven't yet heard Letter 2, you'll find it in the main Screwtape Letters playlist. We'll return after the next reading with another short conversation as we continue exploring the Screwtape Letters together. Until then, thank you for listening, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you most in Letter 2?